Building an app with your friends might be more entertaining than watching a movie, and we don't really think about how much we would pay for that kind of experience. A lot of the experiences we can have, we don't really need to pay for, and in the context of why we have an economy, it's mostly circulation. I was just reading a post about why fewer people are using Postman, which was a company that was valued, I think, at more than $1 billion. The functionality is pretty easy to achieve with VS Code and Linux commands. So why was the company so valuable? Kinda because we need an economy to exist, and the things our things rely on have structures that we can optimize in some ways. You can form a watch party with your friends and vibe code. You can vibe code while you watch, I don't know, The Last Airbender. How about that? If you're planning to watch the Avatar Aang movie, why don't you vibe code while you do it? Cheers. I open source a lot of my code because the bottleneck is relationship. I'm going to say that again. The bottleneck is relationship. You can have the best app in the world, but if nobody's using it, it's not doing the thing that you want. Unless you just want to have your code and relate to the language, then I'd encourage you to explore the world of authorship. Cheers. This is my current website. I need to update the copy because Splashy is my creator identity more than a location. I mean, I guess in a metaphysical sense, you might call it a location. Like, where is my spirit located via the web? There are a few things that I really like about this and a few things that I find frustrating. One of the things that I find frustrating is that there isn't a lot of clarity between what's a link and what's a button. Also, some of the styles are kind of wonky. Also, the images, well, I mean, yeah, that's part of the styles are kind of wonky, but the images, how do I say that? So the colors are one dimension and the shading is another, but the spacing issues are different. So there are problems with the theory of design, and that I'm not using the colors that I want to for the regions that I need to interact with, or that I would want to be interactive. Some of the interactions I do appreciate, but there isn't a lot of clarity in what is what. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily going to change that because I can see that there's value in having unexpected features for people who are trying to learn and who can wonder about a structure. And then some of these images were generated as synthesizations, is that the word, of other images that I had, which I don't find them very attractive. I updated this yesterday, and I will continue updating this today with Claude Code and GPT Codex, and then later my credits with Gemini renew. So I'm trying to figure out which dimensions of development I want to prioritize for which models. But generally, I like the style. If I point too specifically to my website or ask for money, then TikTok deranks the videos. So fewer people see the videos where I have a specific call to action. That's why I make so many videos that aren't specifically about the thing that I want people to do. And it also is exhausting. Cheers! Developing with agents is still difficult, and I'm not sure where to put that. I want to encourage people to explore AI, and it will still be challenging. My session limit for Claude Code reset for 5 hours, my 5 hour session limit, and I can ask for improvements, and I have designed a lot of the site. And you can visit the plans on GitHub. And it's difficult for me to find the energy. I'm not sure how to describe that quite. I know that paying attention to the details that are possible to pay attention to can be exhausting, and ideally the coding models would make it easier, and there are so many dimensions that I can consider, I need to figure out which ones are relevant, which is probably the advantage of these videos for my audience, because I'm describing how I'm developing my website so I can apply to principal and senior software engineering roles. If you're a business owner, you can benefit from the code that I've made available open source on GitHub. This video is more for engineers who are maybe surprised by the effort necessary to keep the agentic context in their minds. Cheers. Some things that used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can now do for free. And part of this is because of the open source community. Part of it is because of AI. But the people who invested actually have the things that they invested in. So you do actually need to get started. Some of the things that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars years ago are free today, and you can get started today. Maybe it'll only be relevant in a few years, but in a few years, you'll be able to build on what you've started. Cheers. If you have skills, people might hire you for your skills. And if you make videos and post those to the places where people watch videos, it's more likely that someone who needs your skills will be able to find you. I'm a web developer and I can help you adapt your business to AI. And if you don't want to use AI, I can point to the dozens of creators who don't, and also make a living. I've been networking on TikTok for the past couple of years, and I've been a software engineer professionally. Watch more of my videos before you hire me. Cheers. The weird thing about marketing for the modern age is that I expect your agent to review the things that you consider actually spending money on. The most I can say is that you can install my workbench and develop websites based on that. And also, I'm doing that too. And also, I have a team of 30 people. So you can install my workbench. It'll be useful for learning science, like applying the principles of the science of learning. And you can design websites with that. You can also exercise your mind by navigating the code base. Cheers. Indie publishing is beginning to outpace traditional publishing. I'm developing lore.land. If you're an indie author, DM me. Cheers. If you work in tech, there is less competition than it seems because knowing computer science is traditionally a prerequisite to getting into software engineering. And a lot of software engineers don't have a good model of computer science because it hasn't really been necessary to do the kind of plumbing work that the industry has been for a while. So a lot of software engineers do things that are algorithms that don't scale. And companies no longer want to hire the software engineers who don't have a sense of algorithms. I make videos because there's a chance that my videos can be seen by a recruiter, or by somebody who wants a website, or by somebody who's learning software engineering, or by illustrators or authors or narrators. I can also develop code, and I can do both make videos and develop code. The code that I've been writing, some of it, I've posted to GitHub, and you can extend that if you want to. I have conversations with other developers about the ecosystem that I extend. And I can plug these videos into Gemini and have the summary be useful towards describing a direction. I can ask Gemini to summarize the things that I've said in a video per day. Like if I stitch all these videos together, I can post that on YouTube and copy and paste the summary from Gemini into ChatGPT or Claude. Then I can develop my website, reflect on the things that are new on my website, learn, and make new videos. I've been doing this pretty much every day for a few years, along this process. Other software developers have had the ability to, and if you haven't been making TikToks for a few years, you won't be able to point to TikToks that you've made years ago. So if a hiring team wants to make a quick decision about a developer who has years of experience, I can point to videos I've made years ago describing having dozens of years of experience, about a dozen years. Now, as a developer, I have 15 years of experience, and years of experience don't mean as much, because a lot of experienced developers haven't updated their model of how the industry works. A lot of experienced developers already made the pivot to business, and engineers who understand computer science have likely considered starting their own business at the very least to describe how they can value the things an organization might. My recommendation is to sporadically visit my website, spwashy.com. I recently added a dev server with hot reloading. I thought that Codex was going to implement Vite, but Codex actually implemented a custom solution. I'm not sure when that's going to become too brittle, and when it is too brittle, I'll update my code. If you're following along, you'll have the progress that you keep up with. But just like college, if you don't do the homework, you probably won't do well on the test. And the test is existing in the modern economy. Cheers.